I'm Ken Steele. Welcome to another 10 with Ken. This week my conversation continues with Assiniboine Community College President Mark Friesen as we chat about 3 concrete ways that higher ed leaders can nurture a culture of innovation on campus.
Well, if you own this thing, what would we be doing differently? Being invested in the same way as if you are the owner, I think, is helpful. At the end of the day, you do need individuals to feel that they can take risks.
So stay tuned for Mark Friesen on ways to invest in your people, empower them, and inspire them to take ownership and initiative to propel innovation. This week, I'm at Assiniboine Community College in Brandon, Manitoba, speaking with President Mark Friesen. Mark, thanks for taking some time to sit down and chat with me.
Great to have you here, Ken.
Mark, I'm wondering if there are some insights you've gained over your career in higher education leadership that sort of suggest how we can help faculty and staff in an academic environment feel brave enough, feel supported enough to take some risks and try new things, whether that's technological or it's shifting from lecture to active pedagogy approaches, or it's adapting services to meet the needs of part-time students or Indigenous students or international students.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that are probably worth note. In our last strategic plan, we adopted what I consider to be a different set of values. One of the things that I've found in a number of environments, we end up with what I call a standard set of values. Integrity, honesty, these things, which in my view should be table stakes, right? Should we really have to state them in the plan that you should be honest?
Right.
And so when we moved to a set of values we thought were indicative of the kind of culture we wanted to build. They were be passionate, take initiative, deliver results. And so under the take initiative piece, the full value reads, we take calculated risks without fear of failure. You wanted to state explicitly for the college community that this was a value, right? To make no mistake about it, that it was okay to try new things, and that we know that not all new things are going to work out. And so I think that's really part of the equation. The other for us has been looking at what we do around professional development. We came up with a talent management action plan back in 2011 or so. And at that time, we were at about 1.25% of payroll for PD. And we've actively put in place a strategy to move that to 2.5% over a number of years. And recently, we've upped that to go to 3%. So I would say compared to lots of places, we're investing a lot more on the professional development side. Given the fiscal environment, there's probably not likely to be a whole lot more of us to do the work that's coming down the pike. So how do you make sure that we're all prepared to do a better job of what there is?
Right. Every college I've visited, the president and the senior team and the leadership are all pretty clear about that kind of a value that we want to encourage calculated risk-taking without fear of failure. But every step down the organization I go, there's a little bit of growing anxiety until you get to the front lines, ironically, where we're closest to the students or to industry, where there's a real drive to sort of satisfy the KPIs and the metrics of the person above us, more so than meet the needs of the student in front of us. The further down the organizational hierarchy you go, the more doing nothing is the safest course of action. That's the inertia that we're fighting against, is that not rocking the boat, not making extra work for your colleagues, not changing policies and procedures is far more the path of least resistance. How do you translate the strategic level objectives down to that front line? Are there any other ways that we can help ensure that it's not just the senior teams that have the luxury of looking forward and thinking big picture?
At the same time, I think it's faculty that are in the vanguard. They're most likely to be coming up with the interesting ideas about what we ought to do. And so how do you make sure that ideas get translated up through the organization, right? That they're able to catch attention and resources. Let me talk about something that we've tried, which might sound pretty bureaucratic at first blush, but was trying to get at one of the historical problems that I saw. Folks in middle management who would say, well, we've always had an idea but then nothing happens, right? Oftentimes their notion of them putting that idea in the window was them mentioning the idea to a vice president, right? So they just say the idea, but nothing beyond that. So we actually started to train staff in how to write decision notes. And that's been incredibly helpful at dislodging some of these things, right? Now they get decisions about can it move forward, can it not move forward. When you sort of say to folks, well, we're going to train you to write briefing notes, they think, well, we're in for, a pretty boring exercise here. But it's actually been incredibly helpful at getting decisions made because it gets their idea in front of somebody who can help them move that idea forward. You can see for the ones who take to it how they get their ideas now on the table, or in some cases get their ideas off the table, right? Doesn't have to clog up space in thinking about an idea that's not going to fly. They can move on to the 7 other ideas that they have. You're always encouraged in many of these environments to be entrepreneurial, but the closer you get to government, they really want you inside the box, right? The minute you step outside the box, they're like, get back in the box.
Yeah, I mean, it's partly government and public sector culture, and I think there's a reinforcement of that from a traditional academic culture perspective as well. So there's double whammy in a public sector institution.
You're absolutely right. Oftentimes committees aren't necessarily empowered to make decisions, although people default to them as if they do. Usually doesn't work that way, right? So at the end of the day, you do need individuals to feel that they can take risks.
And a lot of it's about that ownership piece. I mean, there's something about the public sector environment where no one feels personally like it's their decision or that they have control. There's a learned helplessness. They gradually get used to the idea that that's less frustrating than pushing for change when a lot of their colleagues might have discouraged them over the years, right?
When I was in Saskatchewan, I had a board chair, it said to me one time, well, if you own this thing, what would we be doing differently? And it was a great question, I thought, in terms of thinking about it from that perspective. And while public sector entities are different and we don't often think about us owning them. Being invested in the same way as if you are the owner, I think, is helpful, right? In terms of bringing that passion to bear, being judicious, but also the risks of not doing things, right? So thinking about risk management from that perspective of, well, what happens if we don't try new things, right? Yeah.
Right. Unless there's anything else.
Unless you want to know about sweet potatoes, that's pretty very good.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Mark. This has been an interesting conversation, lots of food for thought, and thanks for bringing me out to Assiniboine College.
Great to have you here.
Well, that's it for my conversation with Mark, but we have a world of higher ed innovation and bright ideas to bring you in the weeks ahead. To be sure you don't miss a thing, please support this channel and subscribe. My thanks to Sean Cameron for coordinating the on-site recording at ACC. And thank you for watching. This week, my conversation continues with Assiniboine community. My conversation continues with. So stay tuned for Mark Friesen on ways to invest in your people, empower them and inspire them to